Iliacus arises here from the iliac crest, psoas major from all the way up here on the lumbar spine. Here's psoas major. Psoas major arises from the transverse processes of all 5 lumbar vertebrae and from the sides of the intervertebral discs and the adjoining vertebral bodies. We'll see its insertion in a moment. Here's Iliacus. Iliacus arises from almost all of the inner aspect of the wing of the ilium. As they pass downward together, Iliacus and psoas major pass over the superior pubic ramus and under a structure here that we haven't been introduced to yet, the inguinal ligament. The 2 muscles pass downward and backward and insert together down here on the lesser trochanter. Contraction of the iliacus and psoas major produces flexion of the hip joint. When the limb is free to move, flexion brings the thigh forward. When the limb is fixed, as it is here, flexion of both hips brings the body upright. Hip flexor, sartorius. Sartorius is a very long, narrow muscle that lies outside all the others. It runs in a spiral, starting here on the anterior superior iliac spine and ending up all the way down here on the tibia. Sartorius helps to flex the hip. It can also produce lateral rotation of the hip. Now let's add quadriceps to the picture. All this is quadriceps. It's the main muscle that extends the knee. The only part of quadriceps which acts as a hip, here it is. It forms a bulge on the front of the femur. Vastus intermedius arises from this broad area around the lateral aspect and front of the femur. Wrapped around the outside of vastus intermedius are vastus medialis and vastus lateralis. These 2 cover vastus intermedius almost completely. Their fibers run obliquely all the way round to the back. Here's lateralis, here's medialis, almost meeting it. Vastus lateralis arises from the lateral edge of the linea aspera and from the side and front of the greater trochanter. Vastus medialis arises from the medial edge of the linea aspera and from just below the lesser trochanter. The thin strip of bone between these 2 lines of origin provides the insertion of all the adductor muscles and also the origin of the short head of biceps. Now let's add rectus femoris to the picture. Here it is. Rectus femoris arises from the ilium just above the hip joint. Its tendon of origin has 2 parts, a posterior or reflected part and an anterior or straight part. The anterior part arises from this prominence, the anterior inferior iliac spine. The posterior part arises from just above the acetabulum. All 4 heads of quadriceps converge on the quadriceps tendon. The lowest fibers of vastus lateralis and medialis insert onto the sides of the patella. The principal action of the quadriceps muscle is to extend the knee. In normal walking, quadriceps straightens the leg as the foot reaches the ground, then keeps the leg straight while the hamstring muscles extend the hip. Lift the body upward when we climb uphill, when we rise from a sitting position, and when we jump. The same muscle actions propel us forward when we're pushing a heavy load. Here's vastus medialis. Here are the adductor muscles, magnus behind, longus in front, and brevis up here. The adductor canal is formed by the groove between adductor longus and vastus medialis, and by this sheet of fascia, called the roof of the adductor canal, which bridges over between the muscles. The adductor canal is covered over by the sartorius muscle.